Welcome to the Rust Belt Rundown, brought to you by Rust Belt Recruiting. This podcast is designed to shine a light on the meaningful work being done in Northeast Ohio and the surrounding region. We will convene manufacturing executives and Northeast Ohio business leaders for candid discussions about their business, regional happenings, industry trends, entrepreneurship, and more. Now, let's get running on the Rundown.
Okay, welcome everyone to episode 9 of the Rust Belt Rundown. I'm your host, Paul O'Connor, and on this episode, we are joined by Steve Peplin, the CEO of Talan Products. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. How is everything going your way?
Everything is great. Just peachy.
Appreciate you coming on and taking the time. First and foremost, for people that do not know, can you just share us with the background about Talan Products and how it has evolved over the years?
Well, Talan Products is a high-volume, high-speed metal stamping company, contract manufacturer. We're sort of misnamed. You know, all manufacturers want to have a product line. They feel that's the holy grail where all the money is going to be made. So 35 years ago, we thought we'd name the company Talan Products, and thinking that eventually we'll have a product line. We did fool around with products and having our own products. And it's a whole different game, product development, than contract manufacturing. What we found is that we're really good at contract manufacturing, but the marketing and distribution and the rest of the puzzle that it takes, you have to solve a complex puzzle to be a product developer as opposed to a contract manufacturer. So we make parts for other people. You go to a building products trade show, for instance, the roofing show, our parts are literally on every aisle in the show, but you'll never see the brand Talan Products. Our brand is only known among people who need to have a manufacturer, a metal parts manufacturer.
Got it. Okay. You have one of the classic entrepreneur stories, right? So you started in 1986 with a little over $2,000 and two partners. What made you want to take the plunge into starting your own company?
Yeah. I've never really had a job. I've always worked for myself. I mean, when I was 10 years old, I was shoveling driveways and mowing lawns. We grew to eventually painted houses, and we just always I was always self-employed. And I was at a coatings conference. Coatings meaning like high performance paints, And the guy next to me, what's your family do and what do you do and where you're from? We're just making small talk. He says, "Oh, your family's in manufacturing. I need $500,000 of these." And he held up a part. It was a 4-inch disc used in the roofing industry. I said, "I don't know anything about manufacturing, but I'll take it home to my family and see if they're interested. How much do you want to pay and how many do you want, So I need $500,000 of them, they're 15 cents a piece." So I said, "Well, 75 grand. I'm thinking I'll take this to the family business. Maybe there'll be a few shekels for me left over,
Yep.
So I offered it to him at a Sunday dinner. My parents were still alive, and we would have the whole family for dinner every Sunday. And my dad had reasons why it wasn't appropriate for their factory. And my brother pulled me aside and said, "Just sell the job. You and I will do it. We'll figure out a way." So I thought I was going to just be a sales rep or broker or something. And then the first meeting, the brother the next day said, "Okay, well, don't sell it until Monday or Tuesday until I can make sure we can make it for less than 15 cents. So he calls me Monday and said, "Okay, we can do it for 13.8 cents. So we don't have to be 13.8. It can be 14.8. He said, "Don't be greedy. We're going to make plenty of money at 13 cents. Just sell the job." So I sold the job. First, this is a funny story. The first meeting we had, he said, so I'm thinking that was 100% my deal. I'm going to get like a commission or a rep fee or finder's fee or something, He said, "Okay, now we're going to be a third. I'm like, "A third? Why do I only get a third? I thought it was my company." He goes, "No, you're going to be a third. I get a third, and a guy named John Talan's going to be a third." And Talan's a die maker, and trust me, we need one of these. I said, "What's a die maker? Why do we need one?" He said, "The die maker, if you're going to be a metal stamper," no, what he said was, "If we're going to be a metal stamper, we need a die maker for a partner." I'm like, "What's a metal stamper and why do we need a die maker?" And he said, "Metal stamping is the process we're going to use to manufacture these. We're going to start a company to manufacture." So I inadvertently started a company. I really just wanted to sell a deal,
Yep. So how did Talan get his name on it? How did that come about?
Well, it's a cool name, you know, and I had, there was another company in town called Pepco, and I thought Peplin Products doesn't sound as cool as Talan Products. And that's really kind of how it started. So in the first year, the first job, Talan Products was a single manila folder. I still have the folder. It says Talan Products on it. There was just going to be like one project, but you know, we did well with it. And so we said, well, let's do another project and find another part we can manufacture. And it went on from there, you know, but pretty soon, I mean, you know, we all quit our regular jobs or sold our companies and threw in with Talan Products. And that was 1986. That was the fall 1986. We started in March 86. Then by the fall we were running, you know, producing parts. So the first year we were just virtual. We didn't have, actually one of these places you asked me kind of the history of the company.
Yeah.
The evolution of it. So the first year, what I call like version 1.0. See, matter of fact, on my shirt, it says 5.0. So version 1.0
Yep.
was the first iteration of the company. We were a virtual company before they had virtual companies, before it was a thing.
Before it was a thing, yeah.
Yeah, we bought the steel, we owned the tool, we contracted out the stamping, the metal forming. Then we contracted the packaging to somebody else, and we just wrote the checks and it made the money. And then the second year, for Talan 2.0, we went into John Talan's machine shop, and we became like kind of a tenant of his. And then we only had a couple thousand square feet, but we were a real company at this point. You know, we were small, one step up from a garage shop. We were small. We only had about 3,000 square feet, but we were a real company with a press and employees, and we, you know, actually did our own manufacturing. Then version 3.0 coincided with a move to West 68th in Madison. We were there for 15 years. We moved into about 15,000 feet. Eventually we grew to 58,000. We kept taking over the buildings next to us, and kind of eventually we had a whole neighborhood. Version 4.0 was when we moved to Cochrane, our present location in Cochrane Avenue near Collinwood. We moved into about 100,000 square feet. Today we have north of 200,000, and the version we're well into version 4.0. Now, every time we had a new version like this wasn't a real iteration. I mean, it wasn't a real hard stop in a different company. It was just sort of a conceptual idea of the company was always evolving and always growing. But our location would change, and sometimes partnerships changed. You know, I started off with 3 guys at a third each. We brought another guy in, who's my current partner. So the different iterations of the company, we kind of kid around and say there was version 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. Oftentimes they coincided with a physical move to a bigger, better facility. And oftentimes they coincided with a change in structure of the company, change in ownership structure. We started off with 3 partners. Soon we had 4. Then it was after about 5 or 10 years in 1996. We started in 86. In 1996, we went down to 2 partners. Then we went up to 3 for a while. Then we went back to 2. Right now, the way it stands, I own 2/3 of the company, and my partner, Pete Accordi, owns 1/3. So we have 2 partners.
Got it. I want to back up to, there's a lot of power in the origin story of the concept of just doing, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people that are thinking about starting a company are somewhat, they're obviously, everybody's cautious when they do that, but they're over worried. They may not want to start until it's perfect, or they don't think it's the right time. And there's a lot of power in just doing, to your point. And, you know, your brother said, listen, just sell it and we'll figure it out. There's a lot of power in that.
So I've always worked for myself, right? And so I used to be a contractor, and like I said, as I started, I said when I was 10 and 12 years old, I was mowing lawns. So I've always worked for myself.
Mm-hmm.
It was very much, first time I had a real company, a decent sized company as a contractor that employed a lot of adults. I was like 20 years old, and I was terrified, absolutely terrified that these people, there were families out there relying on me to pay them a paycheck, and there's children, and you know, I was like, all my employees' children and stuff. I was terrified of the responsibility of that. I got over it. I'm over it now.
That's good. That's
I've
good.
done it my whole life, you know.
Yep.
But I remember that feeling really well. The first time I had employees, I remember the responsibility of, I have to make it. I have to, this company can't fail, because it never occurred to me these guys would just go out and get another job. That thought never occurred, you know.
Yep.
I was just like, they're relying on me, you know.
Yep.
And so also when you start up, you work like round the clock, literally round the clock. You know, we were a construction contractor, and we thought nothing of staying on a job site till 2 or 3 in the morning, driving back home, have a few beers, go to sleep for a couple hours, and get up and go do it again.
Yep.
That was just the way you did it. You worked until the work was done.
Yep.
You didn't go home at 5, you know, I mean, it was inconceivable. And that's kind of the entrepreneur way is, you know, and it's still, that concept still holds today. Out in Silicon Valley, they expect 100 hours, 80, 100 hours out of people, and you don't get extra money, and you just lose your job if you don't do that. You know, if you're not one of the guys that's all in, you know, they sleep in their offices. We're much more mature. We're a 35-year-old company.
Yeah, you know how to work efficient. You know how to work smart.
We're not a startup. Yeah, we're not a startup anymore. We're closer to the end than the beginning, as a matter of fact.
Well, I really enjoyed reading the history on your site, because it's not set up like about us pages are. And what I loved about it is that it includes a ton of built-in lessons, and a couple of those that I wanted to talk to you about. Number one being, and a lot of them too, there's simplicity in them, right? But they need to be said, because I think a lot of people get lost in the journey of starting their own company. So lesson number one, don't bite off more than you can chew. We're still lean. There are no waterfalls in the lobby. I love that. If it doesn't add value for the customer, don't do it. Talk to us about that, and why you think sometimes people get lost in that, and maybe they want a newer office and spend more money on it.
Yeah, we were a bootstrapping company, which you don't hear that term thrown around a lot anymore. But it means, you know, you pulled yourself up by your own bootstraps. And we clawed our way up the glass wall with our fingernails. I mean, it was a hard way to go. We had $20 desks when we started. Literally, if we could have found them on a tree lawn somewhere and had a free desk, we would have had just kind of that was in our DNA. Now that has evolved out over the years. We buy millions of dollars of new equipment now, but the concept of being frugal is still very much in my partner and I's DNA. It's just the way we do business. We try to be cost effective. Sometimes being cost effective means buy new. Sometimes it means buy used. We still buy $1 million pieces of equipment that are used, and then we have them rebuilt. We do all the control work in-house and the lubrication systems. We do that all in-house. So we save a lot of money, and there's other reasons for doing that. You know, we have control, we have standardization. All our presses are set up exactly the same way, because we do all the controls in-house. Yeah, the lean is, sorry about that. Lean is hyper important, and not just lean in the manufacturing philosophy of lean manufacturing, but in the colloquial term of lean, meaning that there's no fat, there's no moss growing on anybody in our shop. You walk in, there's everybody's moving, everybody's going fast. The presses are running fast, the tow motors are going fast. Everything is very, very productive. As a matter of fact, a metric around productivity that we're in the 100th percentile. Literally, we take a survey and we were in the 100th percentile. We used to be the 99th percentile. Our sales per employee is about $750,000. Our industry average is about 105, 190. So
Wow.
we're 3.5 times. I mean, by that is a measure of productivity. How much sales you have per employee. There's other measures of productivity like your value add per employee. We're also way, way high on that. The value add is, you know, what you're selling less material cost and outside work, because you can't really squeeze material costs and outside work. Everything else, labor, overhead, and profit, that's what we get paid for. We get the labor, overhead, and profit.
I love how you guys do value add. I mean, that's a sports term. You know, they have, you know,
really?
value. Oh yeah, they have value add, and you know, they try to do it towards wins. You know, what is your value?
Yeah. Okay.
You know, contributing
I've
to
seen
win.
that. Yeah, baseball. Yeah.
Yep. Similar to you, it's just contributing to a sale. Same thing, right?
I never thought about that analogy though. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, you know, having a company is very similar to a sports team.
Absolutely.
You know, we are all on the same team. we all have this same goal. We share the numbers. We used to do a P&L every week, like a trial P&L. And we would have all the leadership of the company come into a room and we'd look at it. And every week we would have, budget and then actual. Now we do it every month or every couple. We do it every month. But we share the numbers. We put out a interim every 2 weeks. So we do 2 times a month. And we share the numbers with everybody. If you don't share the numbers with the leaders of the company, it's like asking them to play a sport, play a game, a team sport, without knowing the score.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have to share the score with everybody.
It's tremendous.
It really helps us. Yeah, we get a vested. Everybody's vested. And then of course, there's a component. 10% of the profit goes to the leadership. Goes to the guys that run the company, other than the owners.
Yep.
And it goes to them. It goes to all employees, I should say.
That's
there's
great.
a split. There's a split between the leadership and leadership. It's a pro rata.
Yep. That's the right way to. I think that's the right way to do it. All right. Another lesson I wanted to ask you about too was focus on a niche or two and become experts. Constantly improve.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's a really one, because we all read all the business books and go to the seminars and we study the gurus and we all want to be successful.
Yep.
And the gurus say, stick to your knitting, find something that you're good at, and do it relentlessly. You have narrow focus and laser beam approach, right?
Yep.
And they also say, a whole nother set of gurus say, be diversified and don't have only one tool in your quiver. Be able to have multiple solutions and don't have one customer or one industry served. Well, you can't do both. I mean, they're polar opposites.
Which one is it?
Yeah, so what we do is we kind of do both. We have a laser beam focus on the process, and the process is metal stamping. That's what we do. Well, we contract manufacturing out of metal, but that's stamping. We're not a foundry. We don't make parts out of wood. We don't do electronics. We do metal stampings, high volume metal stampings. We have a specialty in stamping aluminum extrusions, stamping. So, but it's still metal stamping. So our focus is on our process. Our diversification is in industries served. We predominantly, we were started off in the roofing industry, so that's still a very major part of what we do. And we do a lot of building products. We do LED lighting, roofing, and solar. Those are in automotive. So those are 4 big verticals, big categories of big markets served. So the diversification comes in customers and in markets served, and the focus comes in the process that we employ. So we're kind of doing both.
Okay. I want to back up too. There's a bunch of other lessons that we can get to, but I did want to ask, because you kind of briefly mentioned it. Talk to us about the partnership philosophy that you guys were founded upon. Explain that.
That's everything. We have a core values approach where we have 4 values. We used to have company values, and there was 13 of them, and some of them were redundant, and some, nobody ever realized all 13. But when you have 4 core values, our values are safety, collaboration, tenacity, and respect. Safety is paramount in a metal stamping company because the accidents could be catastrophic. So we have a stellar safety record. Collaboration, that one kind of goes without saying. I mean, but we do say it, and it is the overriding concern. But where the rubber meets the road, the real practical value is collaboration. And that's the partnering aspect. We collaborate not just with our customers, but with our employees and our suppliers. I liken it to 3 legs of a stool. You need all 3 legs. You have to have a great, as in the metal stamping business, our material cost is 65% of what we sell. So it's very important, especially at high volume stampings like we do. So it's very important that we have good relationships with our suppliers. Of course, it goes without saying that your employees are everything. That's what we're selling. And I always tell everybody, anybody can go out and buy a press. They're available in the used market. Anybody can have a tool made. You can source the tool, have it made. Anybody can find a customer, because the market sets the selling price. We don't set, we have a price we would like to get. But the market sets the price for us. And it's up to us, up to my team, to squeeze the labor overhead and profit, down to where there's profit left over, and that's the people. I always tell my people that you guys are the difference and why we're such a high performer, why we win all the awards. We've got walls of awards. We've got probably 50 awards that we've won over the years. And that's the people. So it comes from the collaboration, which our value is collaboration. We could just as easily call that partnering.
Yep.
We called it, we used to say, I do say, we've been partnering before partnering was cool. It wasn't a thing back in the early 80s. It became a thing like, I don't know when, 90s probably, you know, millennial, I don't know when it became a thing. But it became a buzzword, you know, and people kind of realized that the business world had this epiphany. Wow, if we treat our suppliers important, treat them nice, maybe we'll both, you know, the rising tide will raise all the ships, you know.
Yep.
And it really works. We treat our suppliers well because, hey, we're the customer, just like we want our customers to treat us.
Yep. So shifting gears a little bit. So obviously manufacturing is such an important industry in the United States economy, particularly in the Rust Belt region. What meaning do you derive from the work you've been able to do in this region for over 30 years now?
Well, there's the MONEY, there's money.
Yep.
It's a no. The other thing I like about this business is, and I had this in mind when I started. I used to be a rep. I used to work for a distributor. And whatever level of business you're on, you know, there's always somebody trying to go around you, you know. If you're the contractor, people want to call the distributor themselves and buy it direct from the distributor. If you're a distributor, they want to call the factory. They want to go factory direct, you know. Everybody wants to cut out a layer of cost, a layer of overhead, you know. If you're the manufacturer, they can't cut you out, right? I mean, like you're going back to the source. You know, at the time, there used to be a steel company called LTV. That's how old we are. LTV Steel down in the flats. I said, you want to cut me out? Call LTV yourself and buy your own steel. But there's no LTV anymore. But you could say call Metal and buy your own steel. You know.
Yep.
Little did we realize, you know, the world changed a lot in the last 35 years. Now, of course, we have to compete with China and India and Vietnam and, you know, Mexico, all over the world. So the globalization has really impacted us a lot. So go around the manufacturer and just offshore. But we compete successfully with offshore because we have very low labor content. And like I said, we have a very high sales per employee, which translates to a very low labor content.
Yep. Yep. And how important is businesses like yours for Cleveland? You know, I mean, talk to us about.
Oh, you know what?
Go ahead.
Let me finish. The nobility. I wanted to talk about nobility. And that's what I was getting at, was it's noble being the manufacturer. You know, you're actually creating value. You're not just adding cost to this product that you're bringing. You're not like I'm not saying a rep or a distributor or you know, a broker doesn't add value. There's value, otherwise they wouldn't be in business.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're the manufacturer and you buy $1 worth of steel and you beat it into a shape and you sell it for $1.20 or $1.50, you've added that value, that 50-cent value. You've truly created value, you know. And that's why I felt it was noble. I had a friend that was a commodities broker, and he, after college, you know, when I went into manufacturing, he was just in awe of the whole concept of. He said, I don't add any. He was speaking. He said, I don't add any value. I just add cost. I just buy things and sell them for more. He said, add any value, but what you do is noble. You're adding value. You're creating wealth. You know, they say I can't remember who said it, but somebody famous said. Only true wealth creation is mining, manufacturing, and agriculture, because you're creating something, not just moving money around.
Yep. Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting.
I like that. No. I like that. You mentioned on your site the need for diversification and flexibility in terms of new customers and processes. Are there any new verticals that Talan is pursuing?
I was thinking about this. You know, the one thing that we've been working towards for quite a while, and it's a big issue in manufacturing, is automation. Doing more with less labor, having one machine do many operations. And if you know what progressive die metal stamping is, we take a coil of steel and we put it into a die that's inside of a press, and the press goes up and down. Here, I'm moving my hands. There you go. The coil goes into the press, and the press goes up and down, and every station in the die, another operation gets done to this strip of steel. Then at the end, the last hit, the finished part comes off. So it's not really an automation in the popular use of the term automation. Automation now, we've got automations that will do sawing and drilling and tapping and, you know, maybe deburring, and then at the end, a finished part comes out. But a progressive die is similar to automation. You have many operations going with only one person just watching the machine that's running, you know. So we've been in, I like to say, like we've been in automated processes forever. It's kind of in our DNA. It's a part of what we do. But now what we have to do is we have to make more complex parts. Like for instance, there's a part that we would make out of an aluminum extrusion. Traditionally, it was sawn and put into a milling machine that would drill it and maybe tap it and maybe countersink it, make a machine center work. And it would take 30 seconds to make a part. We figured a way to put it into a punch press. We would shear it. You can do the tapping, you can do piercing instead of drilling, and you can do tapping in a punch press. So we would do all these operations in a punch press and make one part a second instead of one every 30 seconds, which is an example of an automation. And it's all about value add, getting the most value add we can't compete with Asia or Mexico on labor cost. So we have to do it on efficiency and productivity improvements.
Yep.
Where the machine does all the work, not the person.
I saw you mentioned on your site LEDs and solar panels. Was that a new thing for you guys?
Clean tech, LED, wind, and solar have been in our front of mind forever. Not just because make the planet a better place and not pollute and all that. That's of course good, and that's what we're. But my first company in 1977 was called Energy Efficiency. There was 2 oil embargoes. In 73, 74, I was in high school, and the first oil embargo, and there wasn't enough gas for cars. There was lines at gas stations. It was crazy,
Mm-hmm.
And then in 78, 77, 78, I was out of college. And but when I was in college, the professors, I studied engineering, and the professors just pounded into us all the time about this energy thing, this energy issue we're going to have to get around. We have to save more energy as a country, but as a world. And the second oil embargo was in 78, and I was selling insulation. I was an insulation contractor. So I was in the right place at the right time then for that. And what it taught us, what it taught me was go into a disruptive industry that's going to be very much in demand. So we went into the single ply roofing industry, which is a new way of putting on commercial roofing, where you would have one high performance polymer layer instead of many layers of asphalt, which was kind of the old school way. So it's a very disruptive industry that at the time it was a $16 billion industry, that 8% of the industry was single ply, which was our target market when we started the company. By a few years ago, single ply accounted for 80% of a $25 billion industry.
Wow.
So we grew up with the industry. And so we wanted to repeat those successes with other things. So we did it with LED lighting. When we got into lighting 10 and 15 years ago, there used to be, actually, I shouldn't say 10. We've been in lighting for 25 years because GE's in Cleveland and we made parts for GE a long time ago. But it wasn't one of our specialties like it is now.
Got it.
But we saw there was going to be a major sea change in the lighting industry where it all went to LEDs. And it happened fast. It happened over about 5 or 10 years. LEDs went from just a little sliver of a $100 billion industry to really virtually taking it over.
And what years?
All fast. I want to say, I'm kind of guessing here, but I want to say about 2010.
Okay.
From about 2010 to 2020.
Okay.
You go to the lighting show now, it's LEDs. Every booth, every kind of lighting, whether it's a flashlight or it's a stadium light or it's a traffic light or it's a computer appliance, anywhere there's lighting, it's done with LEDs now.
Yeah. And
it didn't used to be that way. It used to be, LEDs was one of about 7 or 8 different methodologies for creating lumens. So we've had great success in the LED lighting industry. We also had great success in the solar industry. When we got into solar 10 years ago, it was obviously a fraction of the size today. I mean, think about it. Did you know anybody with solar energy back then? Now everybody has friends with solar on their houses. And if you're in major markets like California or New Jersey or the Carolinas or Florida, it's everywhere. I mean, you just see it everywhere. And it's still in its infancy. It's still only a couple % market penetration. So it's going to be a huge industry for a long time. We got in the early days. It was kind of like the Wild West. And it was a lot of fun. It's still a lot of fun. It's a great industry. it's populated by people that are trying to do good work and save, it's like, you're saving energy. You're getting energy from the sun. Who could be against solar? How can you be against solar? It's like being against puppies or apple pie.
Yeah.
So we've had great success in those, all three of those industries. And now the fourth one that we're having success in also is electrification of transportation, electric vehicles. That's one of the next big disruptive things. It's only the same thing. It's only a few percent market penetration. We're pretty early in it. And it's going to be a drastic transformation of our society as the electrification of cars go.
Agreed. So speaking of awards, I know you mentioned a couple of those earlier, but you were recently named to the Smart Business Smart 50, which is a huge accomplishment. Congratulations. But being mentioned among some of the top names in the region, what does that honor mean to you?
I think it's great. I mean, I like to say they can't love if they can't see you. So I don't need it. I don't suffer from a poor self-image. I don't need these awards to make me feel good about myself. I do it so we get recognition. So when a customer or potential customer comes to our office, they look on the wall and they see plaques everywhere, and they see statuettes and little what do you call those, tombstones everywhere for all these awards. It's kind of independent verification that we're great. Now, of course, the CEO says we're great. The CEO tells everybody, "Hey, we're a great company." Look at, the salesman says you're great. Everybody takes that with a grain of salt. You're just blowing your own horn. But when a newspaper or Harvard or a small business news, when somebody independent has a beauty contest or a competition and when you win it, it's independent.
Big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's independent verification. It's like, I'm not blowing my own horn. Somebody else is doing it at that point. Yep. So I think it helps. And one of the harder parts of business, really the bottleneck for almost all businesses, is getting the work, getting the customers, getting them to come in the door and, getting the business. It's not doing the work, it's getting the work.
Yep.
At least it seems that way to me.
No, I agree. Yeah, I think anyone in sales would agree with you too. It's like, the salesman is doing the hard part, right? They're giving you the business. Now you just got to do it.
It's usually the bottleneck in most businesses is the sales, not production.
Yep.
And so anything that helps us achieve more visibility and get more recognition and make them, they can't love us if they can't see us. You know? I
love that quote. It's really good. Yeah, I love that.
Awesome. Bette Midler. I heard that from Bette Midler.
Bette Midler. Wow. I would not have guessed that.
She was on stage with all her, like a whole bunch of girls, she called them her ponies. And she does a wonderful show. I've seen her a number of times. And she said, "Look, I tell all my girls, have a big smile, be right in front when you get a chance, get out there, and they can't love you if they can't see you." So, it's the whole concept of being in front of for her, it was being in front of her customers. For me, it's the same thing, being in front of my customers. I try to, be in front of them as much as I can, but be in front of prospective customers also.
Yep, for sure. Well, Steve, this was great. We'll get you out of here on this one. We always like to ask our guests to highlight another favorite local Cleveland business. And so you have a few options here. You can tell us your favorite restaurant in Cleveland, or you can tell us what your favorite takeout has been, since March, or both.
I'll do both. My favorite restaurant in Cleveland, hands down, is the Marble Room.
The Marble Room, okay.
The most spectacular space in the country. I mean, I've traveled all over the world. That's the most spectacular dining space I've ever been in. And one time my wife said, you go there a lot. Did you, they must know you by now. I go, "Oh, no, they don't know me." I said, "I'm not there that much." So I walked in, like that night I went up to the bar, sat down and ordered a martini. Or no, Gina came up and goes, "You want a martini, Peppy?" So I said, "Okay, they do know me."
They know you.
And then for the local joint that we've been getting our takeout, we live in Chagrin Falls, and we go to Burnt Wood Tavern. Our friend owns it, and he owns the chain. And they treat us really good, and our dogs love the burgers. And
Nice.
but all their food is great, so we really enjoy going there.
Awesome. Well, two good recommendations. We appreciate that. And Steve, thank you again for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate it. And, enjoy the weekend. If you're a golf guy, enjoy the Masters, and we'll talk with you soon.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Rust Belt Rundown. Make sure you check us out at rustbeltrecruiting.com. The Rust Belt Rundown is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and click on 5 stars if you enjoyed this episode. See you next time.